The Power Factor Show with Steve and Rick. Episode 31.
Gun Rights Radio Network has the best pro-Second Amendment, pro-gun rights podcast available on the net. The podcasts are absolutely free when subscribing using iTunes or Zune Marketplace. Or if you want, you can just listen from the website. Make sure you visit gunrightsradio.com to subscribe. Podcasting freedom, one episode at a time.
Brought to you by Safariland.
Okay, welcome to Power Factor. I'm Steve.
I'm Rick.
And today we're going to start our series of episodes on the Double Tap Challenge stage breakdown analysis. So what the plan here is kind of to go through a group of the stages for each episode and kind of analyze, initially lay the scenario out for the stage, and go through and analyze and strategize the different ways that Rick shot it and I shot it. You were shooting single stack with 8-round magazines. I was shooting limited with roughly 19 or 20 round magazines. So obviously your strategy and my strategy were quite a bit different about how we went about approaching the stages. So the format will pretty much be just a matter of going through, looking at the stages, and then we have video from each stage that we'll go through and show and comment about what we did during that, and then after that go back and analyze how we did, maybe how we might have done things differently or anything like that. So stage one is what's called Pagan Gods. We actually shot this one later on. I think it was in the afternoon of the first day.
Right after lunch.
So we kind of at least had our wheels underneath us, so to speak. But the temperature at this point was up to probably low, it's probably mid to low 90s or whatever. I mean, it's at this point
really
1 o'clock. Yeah, it was
really
hot.
hot.
Yeah. I actually, in fact, you and I were talking during the match, and I actually felt that this stage was probably, in terms of challenging, this was probably one of the more challenging, maybe even the most challenging stage of the match. Why don't we just go through here and we'll do the stage briefing and everything here on the stage. So it's 30 rounds, 12 SB targets, 6 steel targets, Comstock. All the stages are Comstock. Comstock just basically means you can shoot as much as you want and stop when you're done. Standing inside Area A, heels on X's, wrists above shoulders, gun is loaded in the holster, extra ammo in the belt. On start signal, engage targets as visible from Area A only. So you're starting in the middle here. You can see that you're looking down the middle of the array here, and as you can see here on the diagram, you have 6 steel poppers. Actually, I think they were speed, what they call Colt poppers.
They're like it's like a pepper popper with no head on it.
Right. The 2 outside steel targets were attached to swingers, and those swinger targets were behind barrels that only presented, I would say, the target for a very brief period. So your options on that were basically trying to shoot the target twice quickly or shooting it once per swing. And
they weren't available from the position you were starting.
No.
You hit the activator, but the swinger started swinging, but you shot at them later.
Right, so you activated from the middle, and then you had to actually go around the sides to shoot those targets. And they were probably about 18 yards, give or take, downrange.
It was
a fairly good distance.
Yeah, I would say at 15 at least.
Right. So with that in mind, why don't we go through and we will watch your run on the stage here.
Actually, first I'm going to go through my analysis of the stage and how I approached it. Since I was shooting single stack with 8-round mags, and I've got a single port through which to engage, there's a total of, as Steve said, 4 paper targets and 6 steel, which by my calculations is 14 rounds through a single port. And the port is sort of divided by this stack of barrels that's in the middle. So from no one place can you see all 14 rounds. You have to kind of divide it into 2 arrays. Since you're going to have to do a reload somewhere there in 14 rounds, it seemed natural, of course, to go 3 of the steel and 2 of the targets on the left side of the barrels, 3 of the targets and 2 of the steel, or 2 targets and 3 steel on the right side of the barrel. So I was going to start the stage loaded 8+1, fire ideally 7 rounds, reload as I transition to the other side of the barrel, fire 7 rounds, Then I'm going to reload as I hightail it. In this case, because I'm left-handed, and I was going to make the longest run from the right all the way around to the far end on the left, and I wanted my gun pointed down range while I was doing that long run. So I decided to move to my right first to pick up the 3 stationary targets, then the swinger, which again is only visible for about half of its travel. It comes out from behind the barrels and then disappears. Then I was going to reload as I ran all the way around to the left side, and again 8 rounds. So you've got 3 shooting ports. Ideally, and you'll notice why when I start shooting, why I say ideally, it would be shoot, reload, shoot, move around to the other side, shoot, and then reload for the long run around to the left to finish it off. So let's see how it goes.
Okay.
Bye.
You can see here you're already having trouble with the gun.
Yep. The slide failed to lock back on the last round. I'd lost count of how many rounds I'd fired. So when the clicked, I then pulled the slide back, and only then did I realize it was empty. And of course, I'm not helping myself by needing 2 or 3 rounds for every popper. So now I'm around the right side. There's a swinger.
Nice timing on the swinger.
And I get lucky here too. Didn't have to wait. You know, that's the nice thing about a swinger is you want to catch it. Ideally, when you're ready to engage it, you want it to be coming out. You don't want it to be a stale thing that's starting to swing back. I see guys. You can see the do I try to shoot it right before it disappears and then have to wait for it to come out again? And I was lucky on both sides. It was appearing just as I was transitioning to it.
And one of the key things on that also is that because of the fact that you shot the steel, which activated it early, those targets aren't doing a whole lot of swinging by the time that you get to them to a certain degree. So they've really decreased their amount of travel down as opposed to doing a full swing. That can work for you and against you, because if it's swinging slow and it just happened to go away when you got there, now you've got to wait for it to come back out.
It's slower, but a smaller exposure. It doesn't swing out as far. If it hadn't been for the malfunction, and it hadn't been that I needed like 11 rounds to drop the 6 plates, that would have been a really good run. So that was my afternoon. That's how my afternoon got started. So let's see if Steve had a little bit better luck.
So my approach was a little bit different than Rick's.
He was going to hit the steel.
That was Steve's approach. I was going to plan on hitting the steel. But since I had 20 rounds in the gun, for me the center position there was 1 magazine. So my plan was to basically clean all the targets in the middle there, in the middle port, using 1 magazine, reload, and then move to the left-hand side. Again, because of the fact that Rick was pointing out of the ways that right-handed shooters and left-handed shooters move better. I felt that moving to the left, in my case, was more advantageous, because coming around the whole entire stage and going over the right-hand side meant that I could keep the gun pointed better downrange, as opposed to if I went to the right first and it had to, being a right-handed shooter, trying to camp the gun into the wall, trying to avoid breaking the 180. And speaking of the 180 there, we did have one of the shooters in our squad who apparently, according to one of the ROs, went about 179.95 degrees and possibly maybe a little bit over that. But I was standing literally just off the right when he came around the center section. He was going one side to the other, and it was very, very close. So
this is an example where you're running parallel to the wall, not running parallel to the 180, and it's easy to get the gun pointed in the direction you're moving. Kind of losing track of exactly where the 180 line is, and that's something you have to keep in mind, and why we emphasize why we went to our left or went to our right, because you want to naturally have that gun pointed down range rather than have to cant your wrist back, cock it back to get the gun pointed down range. But it's always kind of dangerous to move along these long walls, because you start feeling like you're pointing. You want to point the gun in the direction you're moving, and if you do that, you're going to be breaking the 180 by about beyond the 180, 30 degrees.
So my approach to shooting this was I was going to start with the targets on the right. So I started shooting the 2 paper targets to the right. I then shot the popper, which activated the right swinger. Went across all the poppers, hit the popper that activated the left swinger, and then hit the 2 paper target, and then paper targets to the left, and then did my reload and move to the left. Now, generally speaking, the reason I did it that way is that you don't ever want to leave a shooting position on steel. The reason being is that if you shoot it last and unfortunately leave it standing, now you've got to stop, come back, and shoot it. So generally speaking, you don't want to try to leave a position wherever you are on steel. So what I did there is I shot the steel and then shot, actually, well, let's go see what the video does, because I'm thinking actually maybe I didn't do it that way, so we'll take a look. In fact, I didn't. I remember what I did now. So there's a 2 paper target in the right, steel, right. A little slow in the timing there, but coming over here, my timing was good. So I remember now the reason I did it that way is that I was trying to lean out of the port. As I came into the left-hand side, I decided to engage the paper first and then go to the steel and kind of lean my body basically in the direction I was going. If I tried to switch that order and shoot the steel and then the paper, I would actually have to be leaning to the right to engage the paper, which is to the left, which really is causing my body to lean in the wrong direction, the exact opposite of what I wanted to go to. So from that standpoint, I decided to pretty much kind of violate the standard of not finishing on steel, but I decided to finish on steel. So generally speaking, I was pretty happy with the way this stage went for myself. I had a fairly good run on this stage. My time was, let's see here, 1965, 23 Alpha, 6 Charlie, 1 Delta, and I think the Delta was on one of the swinging targets. So
my time was a leisurely 38-28 with 19 Alpha, 10 Charlie, and a Delta.
Yeah.
First Delta of the day.
Really?
More would follow.
Yeah. Okay, so let's move on to stage 2. Stage 2 was called Sea Serpents. This had a very elaborate prop that they had. I was really actually impressed by the artistic nature of the stage with the
giant paper-mache sea serpent.
Yeah, running through the stage. And then the interesting thing is here is that the stage was actually laid out exactly opposite of what the stage diagram has here. Instead of all the targets being in the diagram, they're all kind of left of the shooter. In reality, they were all right of the shooter.
Other than that's exactly the same.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's interesting. They made a mention, I think, right in the match booklet of how hard they tried to make the diagrams precisely match the actual layout. And other than this being a mirror image, it really is a pretty good representation. I mean, like these targets that are shown kind of behind the coil of the serpent were actually beneath the coil. They were closer to the shooter's position, and we'll see that in the video. But the layout of the targets, if you're going to try to determine, okay, I want to shoot these, then reload and shoot those. We went on and on about in a previous episode how you really don't want to do that based only on the match booklet, because it frequently does not look the way it does in the match booklet when you actually see the layout. But these are remarkably well done, and they make point of that hey, we really, unlike most matches, we want our match booklet to accurately represent what the stages look like, and they did.
However, I will say there actually are quite a few stages that, I hate to say, but did not look exactly. I mean, it gets in the target placement of where they are, where the walls are, and what you assume, and so on. But we talked about before of don't look at a match book and go, oh, I'm going to game this based on what I'm looking at here, because in reality, what you're going to see on the ground is going to be different than what the match book says.
But this is better than most.
And there's also other information that you find out when you are going to shoot the stage that isn't in the match book, which we'll mention here in a second. So this stage goes like this: 28 rounds, 140 points, 14 IPSC paper targets, so it's all paper, no steel. Best 2 hits on paper. We see standing in area A, facing downrange, toes on X's of fault line, wrists above shoulders, gun and holster, extra ammo on belt, on signal engage targets as they become visible from within area A only. So we had gone through and did the walkthrough on this stage, and again, like we were saying before, there's really nothing tricky about any of these stages. That are very straightforward. But as we were doing our walkthrough, we kind of realized that it was probably more beneficial, rather than ducking under where you can see the sea serpent's tail, which is winding its way through the stage, of kind of stepping out of the shooting area and going around the sea serpent's tail and coming back into the shooting area, because there's no restriction on that. However, then when they actually did the stage briefing, they stated that you had to go under the sea serpent's tail and you couldn't step outside the shooting area.
Not a huge deal.
Not a big deal, but I mean, after you went and did your walkthrough,
another example,
over and over and over, and then
we practiced running around it. Then hey, we can't run around it. We have to walk under it.
Right. So which changed the way I shot the stage a little bit. Not a lot, but I mean, it changed the engagement order of a couple targets. So for the most part, it really didn't do too much. So how did you approach this one?
Like most of the stages at this match, they were really set up to be broken down into groups of either 6 rounds or 8 rounds. And so again, being loaded 8+1, I was trying to essentially break it up into a logical bites of 8 rounds or 6, and it just depended on, which direction I'm turning, where am I in my position on the range, and it was very natural. I mean, there wasn't anything really weird or tricky about it. It was just keeping your knowing your footing, your placement within the stage, so you're not breaking the 180, because we were backing up on this stage. Unlike the vast majority of USPSA courses of fire, we started at the far end of the range and backed up, which provides some challenges that you don't always see. It's unusual. A lot of people, I mean, I remember it used to be, people would go, oh, hold it, you're backing up, as if, my God, as USPSA was always moving downrange.
Yeah.
And more, you're seeing uprange movement. And so this was a backup stage, so you had to be aware of where the 180 was and not losing track of where you were on the course of fire. And it was really pretty straightforward.
Right.
Well, let's see. Let's see if I hit anything.
Let's see how straightforward it was.
This is three targets that are headshots only. And now I back it up, do a little reload. 6 rounds there. Now another reload. I'm going to fire 8, I think, here. Now another reload. And I left this far target, which is about a 25-yard shot, for last. It would have been nice to shoot it earlier, but it was just a matter of reloading. I had 2 rounds available when I got to the very end, so I shot it last.
Right, and actually, pretty much everybody shot it that way too. I mean,
a lot of people did.
You kind of set the pace of doing it that way. Some people we know kind of shot it as soon as they came out from underneath the sea serpent's tail. That went through the middle of the stage there. In fact, my original game plan was to come under that tail, do a reload, pop up the other side and shoot that straight down target there as I was doing my reload. Stepping out and coming back in. It just seemed like it was natural to do it that way. And then when I found out that you couldn't do it that way, I had to change my plan about how I did it. So,
well, let's see it then.
So would you change anything about how you did that?
I would have moved my feet a little faster. I would have. There's a couple of places where I notice I'm kind of like I'm not in exactly the position I want to be. So when I probably was kind of shuffling my feet around. There's one place I noticed where I kind of hop up in the air and half pivot around, and if I had taken a little bit better position initially, I wouldn't have had to reposition myself for the next engagement. So I would have just I would have had a little bit better plan and had. I mean, it's it's just a flat, featureless floor. It's not like you can say I'm going to stand on that rock. I'm going to take one step beyond that shotgun hull, and plant my right foot there. I mean, which I do a lot of the times on courses of fire where there's distinctive things on the ground.
Right.
And it was just a matter of trying to kind of feel out where I wanted to be, and I was. A couple of times I just wasn't in exactly the right place, but that's nothing I could plan for. The execution was about what I expected. I would give that stage an equal. It's about, if I shot it 5 more times, I might have a better score, 2 times.
One of the other warnings that they gave us in this stage is the potential for 180s because of the fact that you're backing up and you see targets coming out of your vision, and there's a tendency to see a target off your side, turn toward it, and of course wherever you look, your gun goes. And they mentioned that there were a lot of people who were actually DQing in this stage, particularly on the very last 2 targets that you had to move up range, find a spot, shoot those, and then in your case you turned and shot the target far down range. So I think a lot of people, as you're shooting, you're also conscious of that you don't want to, you're kind of, tiptoe, I'm not sure they tiptoeing your way through the stage, but you're cautiously moving through the stage, making sure that you don't turn onto an array of targets too soon, too early, or whatever, and break the 180. So
yeah, and that's the other thing about being used to moving down range is you're used to engaging them as soon as you can see them. Whereas when you have to do things in reverse. When you're backing up range, you got to move first before you point your gun at it. Otherwise, you're going to break the 180.
Right. So one of the general rules of thumb on shooting is that you want to shoot the closest, most open target first. And this stage, it was actually the exact opposite. We ended up shooting or generally speaking, I think everybody did this, shot the A zone or head zone or whatever you want to call it.
Upper
stack of 3 targets first. and then as they were backing up, nailed the wide open target that was right there in front of them, just because of the fact that it's wide open and you are trying to get out of that shooting position. So that's the target you actually shot last rather than first. So I'll look at my run here. So you'll see here, nail the 3. And then I'm basically doing a shoot and the move here. I'm literally trying to move back and shoot as I go, and then apply my reload right as I duck underneath there, pop up either side, shoot the 2 to the right, find my reference point there back, shoot the 2 to the right, turn, rotate, shoot the far target down to the end. Generally speaking, I think I was fairly happy. I mean, I could have gone a little bit faster. This is actually the stage I ended up twisting my ankle on it somewhere. I still have no clue what I did or where I did it, but after I shot this thing, my ankle was immediately hurting, so I'm going back and looking at this. I can't see anything that I did that looks unusual, but I did something on it. But at any rate, yeah, I was fairly happy with that. It seemed to flow fairly smoothly. Could have gone a little bit faster, but I could pretty much say that on every single stage we shoot.
Hi folks, Bob Mayne from the Handgun World Show. The reason I carry a gun is because I can't carry a cop. Just wanted to make a quick video here and let you know that I am teaming up with these guys here at the Power Factor Show. And as most of you know, just recently I put out an audio podcast recapping the events at the Double Tap Championship. Well, there's a lot more. And also there's some more information from close range gunfighting that I did a few weeks ago. So I've got more information from John Payne, from Suarez International, from Stephen Rick here at the Power Factor Show on my Shooters Club podcast. Now, as you know, this is a podcast that I've developed to help raise money for my show, for these guys here at the Power Factor Show, and for the Gun Rights Radio Network. Mark Vanderberg does such a great job with the Gun Rights Radio Network and bringing all of us podcasters together and everything. I want to support him, and I want to support his efforts. So your investment gives you a couple of hours of really good information. It will make you a better shooter. It will make you a lot better at defending yourself with your handgun. You'll get some good ideas. You'll get some dry fire practice ideas. You'll get some competition ideas, some mindset ideas for concealed carry, and a whole lot more. So the upcoming Shooters Club podcast features me. It features Stephen Rick from the Power Factor Show, a little bit from Suarez International's John Payne and close range gunfighting, and a few more things that I'm still working on that I'll be putting in there. So all you have to do is go to handgunworld.com, click the Shooters Club podcast link, and you'll see that it's version 3. It's probably going to come out around the 29th of June. And you're also going to get 1 ticket into the drawing. Now, we've got 5 winners set up so far. And what I'm doing is I'm giving away 3 Handgun World Show t-shirts. I'm also giving away a box of carry ammo, your choice, your caliber, your ammo. You just let us know. If you're the winner, let us know what you want to stoke your gun with, and we'll get you a box of that ammo. And then the grand prize is a $100 gift certificate to Cabela's. So, folks, there's a great chance for you to win something and get a couple of hours of really good information only for $25. Folks, $25 is not much of an investment when you're talking about tips that can help you shoot better and also help you save your life. So, once again, thanks a lot. I hope you enjoyed the most recent episode with me and Stephen Rick talking to you from the range at the Double Tap Championship. Once again, the website is handgunworld.com, and just click the Shooters Club podcast link, and it'll give you instructions so you can make your investment and get your free ticket into the raffle drawing. Folks, thanks for listening. Thanks for watching this. I'm Bob Mayne from the Handgun World Show. The reason I carry a gun is because I can't carry a cop. Thanks.
So you feel like you're moving in slow motion, but in reality you're probably going as fast as you possibly can.
Yeah. So how fast did you possibly go on that one?
Well, possibly. I ended up going possibly 19.19 seconds. So I had 16 Alpha, 4 Bravo, 7 Charlie, 1 Delta on that.
I was 2404, 24 Alpha, 1 Baker, 2 Charlie, 1 Delta.
You had a lot of alphas on that stage.
I did. I was obviously the accuracy king on that one.
Yeah, you were. Very good.
Okay. Now, why don't we get into Octopus Tentacles?
Octopus Tentacles. Okay, so stage 3. Yes, this stage.
This was kind of a fun one.
It was a fun stage. So look at this one here. Octopus Tentacles is a 30 round, 150 points, 12 IPSC, 6 steel, Comstock scoring. Standing outside Area A, toes on X's, both hands gripping Neptune's spear. That was pretty funny.
Which was like a broom, right?
Yeah, it was a broom. Yeah, right.
Exactly.
Spear resting on either shoulder, gun loaded and holster extra ammo on belt on signal engage targets as they become visible within Area A only. So again, nothing really tricky here, but you do have options of basically how you want to shoot this. And in my mind, the options are pretty much, do you go in a circle or do you kind of zigzag back and forth across the course of fire?
I've become a big fan of the circle. I used to do a lot of zigzagging, and now I think it's because I shoot a lot of IDPA, and I'm really comfortable moving up range, reloading while I'm doing so. That I find moving in the circle seems more natural to me now, and I just feel like zigzagging. It looks like you're just repeatedly covering the same ground.
Yeah, it's kind of funny because I kind of do the same thing. I really looked at this thing. And during my walkthroughs, I decided I was going to shoot it in a circle. And then after I shot it in a circle, I saw some people do the zigzag thing, and I was thinking, well, maybe I should have shot in the zigzag fashion of going left, going right or left, or whatever the case may be. But to a certain degree, my plan was also based on how or where my magazine reloads were going to be done. Now it turned out for this stage I actually ended up having to do 2 reloads because of the break points and what was left that I hadn't shot. And after looking at this, I think if I look at it a different way and did the zigzag rather than doing it in a circle, I probably would have saved a reload. Whether it would have really saved any time or not is debatable. I saw somebody shoot this using the zigzag fashion exactly the way that I had planned on if I came up with an alternate plan. And compared their time to mine, my time was still faster than theirs, so I'm beginning to think that maybe it wasn't so bad after all. The other thing is that when my reloads were, one of my reloads, it was while I was moving. So, if you can do a reload while you're moving as opposed to doing a reload while you're standing in any, given location doing a static reload, then it's still a reload. You're not moving as fast as you possibly could, but on the other hand, it's not as bad as what it really seems. So,
and this is going to be an interesting stage because I believe this is one where we discussed earlier about making plans for failure and like a backup plan. And this is a stage where I made an on-the-fly decision to leave a steel target standing from what is the obvious shooting position to engage that target so that I didn't run the gun dry and have to do a slide lock reload. I figured I was going to go to the next array and I could then come back to that target and not have to do an extra reload or a slide lock reload. It still took me the time to re-engage, but I bet compared to standing still there and doing a slide lock reload, it probably saved me at least a second. It was just one of those weird things where I just had this little voice in my head saying, "You're going to run the gun dry, you're going to run the gun dry,"
Yeah.
So
it's funny how that voice is really loud when you're shooting single stack and a little bit in production and not as much in limited. Every once in a while, you hear them, but
yeah. Well, so see how it goes. Sure.
One interesting thing here is that the activated targets were disappearing targets. They were fairly quick. I personally didn't have any trouble with them, but we literally saw people not shooting them because of the fact that they were disappearing. They were too fast for them. The sequence they decided to shoot, the target was gone by the time they got to it. The other thing that we saw, which was rather humorous, is that you had to start with the spear over your shoulder. But a lot of people took what I would say is more effort than necessary of getting rid of the spear.
Casting it away,
throwing the spear away as opposed to just dropping it. In this case, gravity is your friend. The spear, being a broom, had a head on it, so it had weight. So in this case here, you put the broom over your shoulder with the head up there, and you simply just let go, and gravity takes control and takes it out of your way.
And then there was the one guy who threw the spear at the activating box on the left side,
thinking that he was going to save time.
While the spear was flying through the air, he was going to do his draw or something, so that by the time the thing activated, he'd already be on the target or something. But as somebody pointed out, he spent so much time practicing this one unnatural move of throwing the spear that it completely screwed up his engagement. I think he missed a target or didn't even engage a target or something.
Well, I think what his plan was is that he was going to throw the spear so he wouldn't have to step into the port.
Right.
But then after he threw the spear, he stepped into it anyway. So
it didn't work. And that's another example. And we'll go through this, I think, more than once over the course of this match, where there are opportunities to do kind of cute little tricks that, unless you practice them, now is not the time to practice when the timer goes off. And throwing the spear at the pressure pad activator probably wasn't the place to practice spear throwing.
Yeah. There's many other times you could practice spear throwing, but this isn't it. So,
exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's see your run.
Are you ready? Stand by.
Here's my first miss. Not on the turner, but here's my reload. Oh, yeah. Seems really slow, but this target's about 15 yards away. Now here's where I'm going. Okay, shit, we'll leave that one for later. Oh, it was a slide lock reload, so it wasn't as clever as I thought. Now I come back to get it, still can't get it. There we go.
Using a Weaver stance.
Yeah, exactly. I noticed that too. Reverting to my early 90s form. Yeah, it's channeling Jeff Cooper on that engagement. Right. So that was a weird stage where again I needed I think 4 shots to get one steel target down when I got the other 4 with 1 shot each. It was just kind of a weird stage. And although I kind of credited myself prematurely there, I did have the presence of mind to think, okay, don't just stand there in the port and do your reload. Move to the next position where you're going to have to go anyway. And so I did, save a little bit of time. But I thought I actually had a pretty good run, just in terms of my engagement sequences and my movement, other than the problem on that steel target. But I ended up looking at my score sheet now with 2 mics, not just the one on the first array, but somewhere else out there I threw another mic, and I don't even have any notion of where it was.
Interesting.
And this was again after the heat had been soaking in for a while, so I probably not only didn't notice, I didn't care.
At this point we were next to last stage of the day on the first day, so it was pretty late in the day, and your attitude kind of starts going. If it hasn't already gone yet, it's definitely heading there right now. Of the kind of I don't care and where's the beer. So at any rate, so would you have shot that any differently? It was interesting that when you at least did realize that you were going to do your slide lock reload and step into the other position, you didn't step so far as to not be able to do your Weaver stance on that target. I mean, it was still kind of in your sight, so to speak, or the ability to engage.
I mean, it was kind of weird, of course, at the time I was doing it, I think I was thinking I didn't want to rotate my body towards that last steel target because I was intent on going the other direction.
Right.
And I had my feet kind of turned in the way I would have them in order to head to the next shooting position. And so rather than squaring up to the steel target, I just kind of rotated around my upper body, which, like Steve said, put me into this kind of weird Weaver stance. And so in terms of the way I approached the course of fire, I'd shoot it exactly the same way. I just execute it better.
Okay, so from my standpoint, I decided to do the circle also, except I went left, around the left side, going to the right, just because my reloads are safer that way, and for a right-handed shooter, moving left to right is usually safer than moving right to left. So let's just see what I did here.
Ready. Stand by.
My static reload. And then shot that steel through between the barrels and the wall. So overall, not too bad there. However, I think if I went back and did this again, I think what I may consider doing is doing the zigzag thing. I probably would have gone to the left, stepped in the activator, shot the 3 targets, gone to the right, stepped in the activator, shot those 3 targets, and then gone into the middle and shot the 2 targets and the steel popper, which would then take me up to, 16 rounds at this point.
So you could have shot the whole last array
on one magazine.
What amounts to, for me, 3 arrays.
Yeah,
you could have done with 1 mag.
Right, with 1 mag, and I think that's where I could have saved a little bit of time and made it a little more fluid than what I did. But again, like I said, as I watched somebody go and do the exact alternate plan after I looked at this and thought, maybe I should have done the zigzag thing, and I saw somebody do a zigzag, and thought it looked really fast, and then looked at their time, looked at my time, and my time was better than their time. So it's hard to say. I mean, these things, you look at them and you can second guess yourself of what you think is the best way to do it. But we're talking in this case here maybe a second that I might have saved or lost or whatever by doing it the other way. So in terms of time on this one, my time was 1884, 24 Alpha, 5 Charlie, 1 Delta.
That's nice. My sucky run was 27 flat, 18 Alpha, 7 Charlie, 2 Delta, 2 pints.
I'm sorry, I didn't catch that last part there.
Yeah. A little bit of a little frog in the throat there.
Yeah. So I actually had a pretty good. I personally had a pretty good alpha count in this one. So, at any rate, stage 4 is Neptune's Nemesis. This was the last stage of the day that we shot on Saturday. So at this point, we're pretty tired and ready to get out of there.
I'm getting ready for my freak out.
Yeah.
This is pre-freak out mode. So, I actually, just not to distract too much from the progression here, I'd actually felt like I was in worse shape on the previous stage. I don't know if it's because I was thinking to myself, okay, one more stage, but I kind of had a little sense of physically rallying, to shoot this last one. So we'll see if it actually panned out.
So it's the fourth quarter. Here we go.
Yeah, I'm just summoning that last little bit. So.
Right. Okay, so 30 rounds, 150 points, 14 paper, 2 steel, Comstock, standing inside Area A, palms on X's of either wall, gun loaded and holster, extra ammo on belt, on signal, engaged targets as they become visible within Area A only. So this is an example, like we were saying before, about how the stages in the diagram are supposed to look like the stages in the course of fire, but in reality, this thing really looked nothing like what it was in reality. I mean, like you were saying, this one kind of looks like you were running down a hallway, moving, generally speaking, off toward the left as you'd go, but in reality, this is another kind of circle stage that you shot.
I think the stage that's kind of, or the walls and the barrels that form kind of an L-shaped pattern was bowed out the other way. So instead of looking like a kind of the stage kind of being in an L shape, if you took those barrels and moved them out to the right and then bowed the walls, or like in a V or a V pattern out towards the targets, towards those 2 steel targets on the far right, and created an open area in the middle, that's more what it looked like.
Right. So
it was another one of those stages where the breakdown was essentially dictated by
mag capacity.
I mean, I essentially shot, I think it was like 8, 8, 6, 6, 8 or something like that. And it'll be an interesting thing that comes up here. There's 2 steel targets, and we'll see a little interesting phenomenon in engaging steel that I've seen happen many times. It's happened to me many times, and it accounted for a mic on this stage, but let's roll it and see what happens.
Okay.
Bye.
Almost hit the wall.
You almost hit the wall there.
Yeah. I do it again later. Now on these steel targets, you'll hear me hit the target, but it won't drop. I hit the first one.
There
you hear ping, but there it stands. And of course, when I hear the ping, I think I've got a good sight picture. I hear the ping, so I don't look to see if it's fallen down. I trust. I'm not looking at the target for feedback. I see the sights on the target, hear ping.
So you weren't calling your shots then?
Well, actually, I did because I hit it.
Well, okay.
True, I hit the target.
You saw, that's a good point.
Yeah.
That you saw enough of your shot on the target, or enough of your sights on the target to take the shot, and you did hit the target.
Yeah, and then once I hear ping, I'm off to the races. I'm not sticking around waiting to see how much of it I hit.
Right. In reality, you also don't shoot based on audible feedback. You shoot based on sight pictures, and you had a sight picture that resulted in a hit in the target.
Exactly.
So the target decided not to cooperate in that particular case.
So I was rather irritated with that.
You could have actually challenged that target, but you didn't.
Yeah, I mean, I saw the guy who was running the stage commented that he saw how little of the bullet hit the plate.
Right.
And I didn't even see the plate move. So it would have fallen down. I mean, it fell down for the guy before me. It fell down for the guy after me.
Well, you never know when a Texas cockroach might crawl into that target.
Right,
I mean, and chances are he'd probably crawl out when you challenge the target. But generally speaking, whenever I have a popper like that, I mean, not to be an a-hole out of it, but you have absolutely nothing to lose and everything to gain.
If I'd been shooting minor, I would have challenged it. I mean, I just didn't think it was worth it. And again, if I'd challenged it, we would have had to stay at the range for another 5 minutes.
Yeah, well.
So, but I'd say go ahead.
I was going to say, in terms of the viewer, information, whenever you have a situation like that, your options are at that point. I mean, if you shoot a steel and it doesn't go down, your option is to do one of three things. 1, shoot it and drop it again. Fire next round to make sure it goes down. 2, leave it up and take the mic. Or 3, leave it up and challenge it. And if you challenge it and the range master comes out, takes the 9mm calibrated ammo, shoots it from exactly the position or nearly the position that you were shooting it, he hits it. And if he hits it below the scoring area or whatever the case may be and it doesn't fall, actually if he hits it below the scoring area, it's done. It doesn't fall and you get a reshoot. They hit it and it goes down, you get a mic. But it's the same mic that you would have got if you just said, screw it, I'm not going to do anything. So generally speaking, in a situation like that, I mean, it's your call, but if it's a close match or whatever, or it's a major match like this and you have something on the line, it's best to I mean, you never know. I mean, maybe a piece of rock or crap or whatever could have gotten lodged underneath that thing and it didn't go down. I mean, you got a definite hit in that thing and you could hear it.
But of course, the target was not touched before the next shooter shot it, and when he shot it, it went down.
Right.
So that would tend to indicate that.
That's
I mean,
true.
If the target falls over, or somebody tips it over, then you never really know because the conditions have been changed.
Right.
But if the target is just left standing and the next guy shoots, I don't have any regrets. I mean, Steve's absolutely right, but I'm not kicking myself because I didn't challenge it.
Right. So when I ran this, I decided since it's the last stage of the day and it has some fairly close targets that I was going to turn it up a notch.
Yeah.
But I also decided to get somewhat
like
gamey.
A Texas barbecue. It was on fire.
The interesting thing here, and you'll note that in my start position, I'm somewhat a little bit contorted, stretching pretty far for those X's. And they had X's on either wall. There was a wall to the left and a wall to the right. The idea was that you engage the 2 targets to the right and then turn and engage at the targets to the left. So as you saw in one of our other episodes on one of our power tips, I talked about what I referred to as the twist, where you get yourself basically indexed to the second set of targets and twist yourself into the first set of targets that you draw to and engage. So I decided to apply the twist in the start position here, but I wanted to get myself far enough away from the wall so that as I rotated the gun, I didn't basically stick the gun into the mesh of the wall and snag things up and everything. So to do that, I kind of had to get my body far enough away from the wall, but still the requirement was that your hands had to be on the X's, so you can see how that goes here. So you can see here I'm really leaning. But it allowed me to rotate quickly to that left side. So those are point shoot targets. You have to go deep into this hole here to engage these targets, do my reload. And unfortunately, trigger freeze. So I had to go back in there, take a step back in, and re-engage that last target. I was literally on my way out, leaning out when I trigger froze, and then had to come back into it and hit it again. So wouldn't have changed the way I shot that. I think I probably shot as best as I possibly could. Again, like I said, I tried to be a little more aggressive. In fact, this is probably the only stage out of the whole entire match that I told myself that I needed to be a little more aggressive on shooting the stages. And again, since it was the last stage and things felt like they were pretty close, I decided to kind of try to turn it up a little bit. And also with the gamey start position there, I really decided to kind of like push it there too. So in terms of run performance, 20.99, 20 Alpha, 9 Charlie, 1 Delta.
It was 2502, 23 Alpha, 5 Charlie, 1 Delta, and 1.
Yeah,
I'm feeling better.
Yeah,
I know.
Yeah, it's really getting annoying. So, we saw that steal.
So that was our afternoon on Saturday at the Double Tap Championship, and there's some in-depth analysis of the 4 stages we shot. Any concluding comments on that?
No, actually, from my standpoint, I felt things at that point. Again, it was the afternoon. The morning went well, which we'll see those videos. But things from my standpoint were going pretty good. I felt pretty solid about the match, the way it was turning out, and I was having a good time. It was hot, but we were dealing with it okay, at least from my standpoint. However, my ankle was hurting pretty good at this point. And that turned out to be an annoyance which continued out the next day, but regardless,
Yeah.
I had bigger problems the second day that weren't related to my ankle, so.
Yeah. I mean, I felt like I'd survived. That was kind of the extent of it by the end of the first day. I mean, I'm looking here at my score sheets. Like I said, I didn't have even a delta in the morning, and I had 3 mics on the last 2 stages. So things were kind of coming apart there. And I was about to have my freak out. So that was my day. That was my afternoon.
Okay, so the next episode we'll pick it up again with some more stages that we do here in terms of Double Tap Championship breakdown, and we'll look at some more stuff and hopefully come up with some other ideas for you. So
until next time,
we'll see you then. Okay, so we also have a contest to announce. Safariland has given us a certificate to give away to one lucky viewer. Certificate's right here. We're going to see how good our producer is. Right? It's right here.
Oh, yeah.
Now we're going to see how really good he is. Ready? Track that look. Okay. So the way you can enter the contest is that between this episode and the end of July, which I believe is July 31st, according to my calendar. How about your calendar?
Could be.
Maybe.
I don't have my phone.
Right, yeah. So if you go to our Facebook page at Facebook at Power Factor Show, or you can also get there.
Somebody's indicating you screwed it up.
Or you can get there. Well, I know the easy way to get there is to go to the website powerfactorshow.com and click the Facebook link there. That'll work.
That's the easy way.
Yeah, that's the easiest way.
Yeah, so do that.
Yeah. So if you go to that and like us, or if you go to iTunes and leave us a positive review there, you'll get in for the drawing also. We're going to basically take everybody who has already gone to Facebook and liked us and everybody else who has already gone to iTunes and leave us a review. You're automatically will be entered, so you're not going to be excluded or anything like that.
So anybody who's ever liked us up through the end of July is eligible.
I don't like you.
Well, I'm just saying.
I'm not eligible.
I'm just saying. Every person who's liked us is eligible,
right?
As long as they get in before the end of July.
Correct.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
So vote early and vote often.
And well, I don't know about vote often. Yeah, right.
I never had
Chicago
never
politics,
had me beg to Facebook.
Right. Yeah, and neither have I, as you can tell, because apparently I blew the.
That the indication is that you blew the Addy,
which actually I think is a badge of honor since I've never been there.
Right.
So at any rate, so it'll be
just
a certificate for your choice of holster, whatever you want.
And if you can name the movie reference.
To
obscures what you said, badge of honor, and I said just the facts.
Oh, okay.
So name that movie, and maybe we'll give you an extra entry into the drawing,
like a mag pouch or something.
As a special bonus from Rick.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. So that's it. Thanks. Get your stuff in.